I want to follow up, and I said I wouldn't originally follow up on this. But I guess the Second and Charles story and the follow-up brought up more and more people contacting me about their experience with one of the 30 chains. And to quickly recap the Second and Charles story, it's 30 locations. It's used media story for music, movie, books, and games. And I talked to corporate because there was concern by someone who contacted me about the practices of the store who may or may not. The store employee told them that the corporate policy was throwing out some games or consoles, and it's not sure if that was true or not, but at this point, it doesn't matter. Now, this sort of Second and Charles story has opened up to me because I have more and more people contacting me about their experience with Second and Charles, and it's not to spotlight just this one chain because that's going to be unfair. But again, it's to talk about in general what happens when you have used media stores or any store in general that aren't experts in retro / classic video games, older video games, getting into the market when they really shouldn't. And it's to make a quick buck. They're not there to preserve history. I don't care what their corporate policy says. That's just corporate speak for saying this is what sounds good for us to make more money. So I got a few emails. I'm just going to go over 2 emails that I received about Second and Charles. And again, this is all in the email. I'll let you decide if it's real or not. But the second one, there's evidence that it's pretty concrete, which is more troublesome. But let's go through a couple of these emails right now. So the first one is from someone named Rody. And his email says, I saw your videos covering Second and Charles used game practices and wanted to provide my personal experience. To put it into perspective, I'm in the store at least once a week to see what new cart trade-ins they have, as they're the closest place to my house that still does this. First, I've never actually seen anything gaming related make it into the free bin. Well, there you go. That's not to say that things are getting trashed, but rather they don't sit in the free bin for very long before someone claims it, regardless of what it is. For example, my girlfriend tried to trade in an old PS1 that they wouldn't accept. That I get. She had no controller / cables, and the poor console was smoked around for almost 20 years. She didn't even make it out of the door before another customer offered to take it off her hands. Another day, she dropped some old demo discs in the free bin, and it didn't last 10 minutes before someone had grabbed them. Well, that's good news. That's really good news then. Another time, I was in line to trade in some old stuff, and the guy in front of me was being turned away with a complete in-box TI-99. The employee explained to the guy trying to trade it in that they probably wouldn't be able to find a buyer for such an old device with no games, and thus they couldn't accept it for trade-in. The employee then offered to put it in the free bin for the customer, and the customer agreed. Okay, let's stop right there. First off, how will the employee know that no one's interested in a TI-99 in the box? Hell, I'm interested in a TI-99 in the box. I don't own one in the box. Used to. That's the whole story. But this is going against their corporate policy right here by this email. The employee offered to put it in the free bin for the customer, and the customer agreed. So before, I was told by corporate policy was that the employees don't put anything into the free bin. Obviously, if this email is to be believed, that's not true. They do. Which brings up this second part, which is troublesome. The employee placed the TI-99 on a shelf with some other items behind the counter and then proceeded to help me. I checked back in about an hour on my own trade-ins, and the TI-99 was nowhere to be found. I regret not making the guy an offer immediately after they turned him away, but I like to think it found a good home somewhere. Okay, so one of two things could have happened there. The employee could have taken that TI-99 and then put it out in the free bin themselves, even though they're technically not supposed to do that. The customers are supposed to do that. And then it was taken by someone within an hour. Or that employee took it for himself. Which is the danger of allowing employees to handle the stuff going into the free bin, which is actually the good corporate policy that the employees shouldn't be placing things into the free bin, because that just leads to graft and theft at that point. So that's very troublesome. That he, first off, this employee told a customer, allegedly told a customer, that the TI-99 in the box, no one wanted it, which is insane. I think someone would want that, especially because in the box makes it more collectible. But also the fact that they then didn't tell the customer to put it in the free bin, they then took it for potentially themselves. Potentially. We don't know. But the potential is there. They didn't follow the court policy themselves at this Second and Charles. That's bad. Back to the email. I do want to say, though, that your concern about the mishandling of retro games is well-founded. For the longest time, this store struggled with the most basic things like price tag placement on Super Nintendo cartridges. There's nothing more heart-wrenching than seeing a mint label with a big dumb orange price tag plastered over it. More recently, they've done it with NES cards that still have their original boxes. Can you imagine paying eBay prices for these games only to damage the box when you try to peel off the price tags? Well, some price tags are easier to get off than others. You can always use, some sort of Goo Gone or a handy-dandy blow dryer to warm and get it off. But either way, yes, that is troublesome. One final thing I didn't think I mentioned in your video. When you trade in items, they don't give you an itemized receipt. They offer you a single lump sum of credit or cash, but don't tell you exactly how much you're getting for what item. That always struck me as a shady practice. Oh, no, yes, that is kind of shady. To not at least tell you what of your games are worthless and which ones are valuable. Ooh, that's bad. Ooh, I don't like that at all. I'm glad you brought that up. Wow. And for you guys out there that have your own YouTube channels or are tweeting at me about, oh, well, my Second and Charles is great. I like the people there. Are you listening to some of these experiences? Are these all made up? Do you see now the trouble? And I'm not sure why you're shilling for a corporation that doesn't give a shit about this stuff nearly as much as we do, especially me. It makes you look like a fool, frankly, if you're doing that. If you're going out of your way to try to stick up and being overly defensive for a corporation instead of being on the side of trying to preserve these games or not screw over customers. Either trading and stuff or buying stuff. That aside, so anyway, sorry for the long email. Oh, Rhodey, that was not a long email at all. That was actually a fine email bringing up some important points about, at this location at least, the customer being turned away from trading in an item that he should have got some cash for, and then the employee potentially, we know he did something bad if he took it from the employee and took it from the customer, didn't tell the customer to put it in the free bin himself, but potentially held on to that TI-99. I don't know, but that's the danger of what this employee did. That's the first email. The second email, though, is more troublesome. And this is the one that pissed me off when this was tweeted at me originally. All right? So this was Casey. Sent me a few images. This is from the Whitehall, Pennsylvania Second and Charles store. He sent me an email, Casey. I said, so during the summer, I went to the Whitehall, Pennsylvania Second and Charles store and was looking around the aisles of the game section. Then I went to see a game that was in the case, and while I was waiting, I looked over the counter and saw a crate of NES games, and asked to look at that crate of NES games that had a bunch of commons. And there it was, and it nearly froze in place and knew that I immediately had to pay for it. And what he's referring to is a Panic Restaurant cart. That I'll get to in a second. I had to immediately pay for it and leave the store and send it to my pawn shop buddy to open it up because I didn't have a bit driver to confirm it was real. I did see a few reproduction games there before. Reproduction, what? I'll get to that in a second. Prices on games are okay to pretty decent, but the trade-in value, what they give you, is pretty horrible. Here is more pictures of the board of the game, too. If you want any more information, feel free to ask. Thank you, Pat. From Casey. So Casey, and I should have prefaced it with what he found. Casey bought a Panic Restaurant at this Second and Charles that was marked on the sticker of the cartridge, was marked Repro. This blows my fucking mind. So the sticker, it's on this video. By the way, this game is absolutely real. The board checks out. The cartridge checks out. This is a real Panic Restaurant that he found in a crate. The date on the label, September 4th, 2016. It says Second and Charles, number 2123, $49.95 for what they thought was a repro. So many problems with this story that my head's going to fucking explode, and that's what I tweeted out. NES, it says NES 8 Panic Restaurant Repro. It says Repro on the cartridge. I'm going to try to hold it together during this story. There's about 4 problems to this story, and I'll try to go through this one at a time. Problem number 1 is that the employee working at the store accepted what they thought was a reproduction Panic Restaurant game and accepted that as a trade-in. They then accepted that trade-in of a Repro game and then sold that game again. It's actually two problems. There is no such thing as a reproduction NES game that already exists. That is called a counterfeit game. If this photo is real, this Second and Charles store engaged in an illegal practice of buying and selling what they thought was counterfeit items. They are buying and selling counterfeit items. A corporation, a major corporation, and willing. This isn't them making a mistake. They marked the sticker Repro. That's a counterfeit game that you not only gave someone trading credit for that you probably shouldn't have, but then you also then turn around and for $49.95 selling a game that you willingly know is a repro / counterfeit. That's illegal to do that. That's the first problem. The second problem, of course, is not knowing that this was actually a real authentic game. So they're engaging in the buying and selling of counterfeit merchandise, but the second problem is that this is actually a real fucking game, which is sad that their employee didn't realize that. And I'll go back to the first point, that they're selling repros anyway. The person writing the email to me, Casey, said he's seen repros before. So these are 2 or 3 problems in one. Why are you selling a counterfeit game? First of all, why are you selling it all? But second, why are you charging $49.95? Where does that price even fucking come from? Because counterfeit games are technically worthless. They should be destroyed. Counterfeit games. They should be fucking destroyed. You should have never accepted what you thought was a counterfeit game in the first place, but in this case, it's actually good because it was a real one. So you're buying and selling counterfeit items, and then you're charging $49.95 for it in full, but then it's actually a real game. Okay? That's actually 3 or 4 problems right there. It's good that someone got a deal on this, by the way. Casey, it's awesome that you rescued this game for a low price and got it out of there. And screw Second and Charles again for making this error twice. But what boils my blood, besides a chain, major corporation that are knowingly accepting trade-ins and selling at an exorbitant cost anyway, counterfeit games, and not being able to fucking identify them, that just blows my mind entirely. Again, these aren't GameStop employees that are taking these and shipping them back to the warehouse who don't have the time to or training to deal with it. This shows that there's no fucking training going on. And it shows that any employee with common sense knows that you should not be selling counterfeit items because it's fucking illegal to do so. Again, if this label is true. But I don't see why this would be a fake from looking at it. A fake Second Charles repro. Because this person would be in deep trouble if that's the case. But the tragedy in all this, and you out there can be selling, and some people tweet at me without getting it. Is that, well, Pat, why is it bad? This guy got a good deal on an expensive game. Yes, he did. This guy got a great deal and good for him. But what about that poor sap who traded it in? What about them? They got fucked in the ass. They got royally fucking screwed on the trade-in. They traded in a game that if they brought to a mom and pop shop, they would have got hundreds of dollars for. Hundreds of dollars. If they sold that game on eBay, an open auction one on January 2nd just ended for $400 on open auction. Buy it now's one sold for $450. Open auction $495. Buy it now's at $550, $600. They would have made hundreds of dollars either on eBay or even traded into a mom and pop. A store like Luna Video Games would have probably given them at least 50 or 60% cash for a game that is hard to find, knowing that they'd be able to sell it probably within a week or two and make a couple $100 profit off the trade-in. This person walked into a Second and Charles. Maybe they had the games for years, maybe not. They were fucking told by an employee at Second and Charles that this game is a repro when it wasn't. If that doesn't fucking boil your blood, it fucking should. For damn well fucking should. It absolutely. Because they gave that person, for a game that they turned around and sold for $50, they probably gave that person no more than $5 or $10 cash. That person got fucked out of hundreds of dollars on the traded of just that one game, and who the hell else knows what other game they could have traded in that was either erroneously called a repro when it wasn't. That's a fucking shame. Again, Casey, this isn't against you. I would have done the same thing if I saw that game and rescued it and got it for $50, and hell, then you can sell it and make your money back, or if you need it for your collection, what have you. It's not on you, but that nameless person out there got fucked in the ear for hundreds of dollars by a store and employees that don't know what the hell they're doing in terms of valuing cartridges or even judging cartridges to be fucking authentic or not, and then knowingly and willingly labeling cartridges as counterfeit, which is a repro, it's a fucking counterfeit, and then selling them, which is illegal. I'm guaranteeing you that's not a Second & Charles corporate policy. And if it is, people in corporate, you better fucking fix it, and fix it right fucking now. Because to me, this is worse than anything GameStop ever did. Because at least GameStop, in their retro function, as bad as it's been, I don't think they are knowingly selling counterfeit items. They're just too dumb and are too ignorant to know what it is. Here, this is direct evidence that they are knowingly trying to sell counterfeit merchandise and counterfeit retro games. It's a shame. And again, a warning against those out there to be vigilant against these media stores trying to make a quick buck and not having the training to do this. Because no one wins in the end. Stop putting out your videos defending these companies when you shouldn't be. No one should be sticking up for any of these companies. They're not your fucking friend. Watch out for this sort of shit. Because it's harmful to not just the retro game community in general, but to individuals that are now screwed out of money for their games that are real and they're told they're fake. It's absolutely, it's insane. It's insane.